everyone, this is OCD Live. I'm Ali Grayman, and let's get to some questions. So the first question I have is, hi Ali, what's the difference between guilt and anxiety? I've suffered from OCD for 6 years and I've always recognized the sinking feeling in my chest as guilt. I understand the OCD is an anxiety condition, so my brain has started to scrutinize this and doubt whether I actually have OCD. Okay, so there's a few things here, so let's break it down. So first of all, what is the difference between guilt and anxiety? Anxiety is when your mind is sending you feeling that there is something wrong. If that anxiety is because you have, say, for example, false memory OCD, it can also send you guilt along with it. So they're not conditions that go one or the other. They're conditions that go together, you know? The thing is, what makes something OCD is as opposed to just having guilt, because we're all human, we're all done things we feel kind of guilty about. But if you have OCD guilt, it's guilt based on the fact that your brain is sending you thoughts that are not true. Do you know what I mean? So it's sending you thoughts. Say, for example, what if I killed somebody? Now I feel super guilty. Of course, right? Because the brain is trained to believe that the situation happened, so it's sending you feelings as if the situation happened. So it's sending you the feelings of guilt as if it really happened. And this is very, very common in OCD. I would say 90% of types of OCD, people have guilt attached to OCD. So it's just like it's a false thought. Not even necessarily a false memory OCD. False memory OCD is just, it's always the case. But other types of OCD as well, like religious OCD, for example, the person will feel guilty like they're doing something against God. Cleaning OCD, the person will feel guilty because they feel like if they don't clean enough, maybe they'll poison somebody. Or say, for example, guilt about all kinds of like harm OCD. What if I done something to another person, or I'm gonna do something to another? So all of these different aspects all come with guilt. So you have to understand that guilt is coming to you. It's not actual, like it's not generated by you, it's coming to you with anxiety because you have OCD. While if the situation is real, right, then it doesn't come with an OCD particle to it. So you just get anxiety and guilt, but you don't have the doubt. Do you know what I mean? Like, for example, like just if you think back to a situation where you were doing something wrong, right? And again, we're all human, we've all done things we're less than proud of, right? So you never doubt what happened. You've done a little bit wrong, right? And you just think, okay, well, that's what happened, So there's no doubt there, right? But here there's doubt. Even if it's like 0.1% of a doubt, because when you have OCD that's 10 out of 10, it's hard to even kind of see that. Like a lot of my clients, when they start out at 10 out of 10 anxiety, they won't even see that, there is the doubt. It just feels so real, right? But as you go down in your anxiety, like as you start the recovery, you see more and more that, okay, yeah, this doesn't, this seems like maybe it didn't happen. Or now it seems like a lot like it didn't happen, So it goes through those stages. But at 10 out of 10, it can feel very, very real, but it's still, the fact that you're listening to this show, put it this way, the fact that you're listening to the show already means that you have OCD and that this guilt is from OCD. I feel bad giving you reassurance, because what you're asking for basically from me is reassurance, and it's basically making you worse, by giving you reassurance. But I think that from this point, you need to stop analyzing it and trying to compare the two. So no looking up online, no going back to the situation if that is about the past, or thinking about the situation if it's about the future, right? So no thinking about it. Guilt means it's OCD. For you specifically, guilt means that it's OCD. You're moving on right now. Okay? So you're not going over it over and over again, because that's going to make you worse, and that's going to make the whatever you're worried about seem more real. So you don't want to do that. So next question I have, also, can recovery become an obsession? Because lately I've been having thoughts about what if I never recover, and it's giving me a lot of anxiety. Yes, absolutely. And that thought, that what if I never recover, I hear that quite a bit. Now, I think that there, again, just like the first question, there's a few parts to this. I think that when you are a 10 out of 10 OCD and you don't know what you're doing, you don't know the methods, right? You feel really bad all the time. So there's not even like really, like, you don't even see a hope in recovery. Once you start to get to 8 out of 10 OCD, 7 out of 10 OCD, you start to kind of see that you are in the process of recovery now, but it's still like whenever you have a setback, it just feels so bad that you're going back on the progress. So I see that happen a lot too, where the person will feel really bad and feel like they'll never recover because, they see that it's like, it's almost, like they can grab it, but they can't reach it. Do you know what I mean? Where at 10 out of 10, you don't even have a hope of reaching it. And this was the same thing with me, right? Like when I had OCD, it gets frustrating in that middle part where you're getting there, but you're not quite there. So that's very, very common. Um, Now, the more you worry about this, that what if I never recover, the worse you will feel about the whole situation, because it does become like just like any other obsession. So, what you want to say to yourself whenever you get these thoughts, you have to kind of treat it as an obsession. Um, that if I'm doing the right thing right now, which is ignoring the thoughts, in this case, this specific thought, I am going to recover. Every time you ignore, you are in a race, basically going against yourself, okay? Every time you ignore, you make a step further in that race, and you have to get to the finish line. Every time you pay attention, you take a step backward, you know? So as long as you are doing the right things most of the time, you will get to the finish line. You have a lot of it is a repetition process. Actually, probably all of it is a repetition process. Just like before, when you didn't know what you were doing and you were paying a lot of attention to OCD thoughts all the time, like 24/7, you trained your brain to think that you're in constant danger, that all of these thoughts that follow in your theme or themes are important. And now you have to turn back from that and show your mind that that's actually not true anymore. Because you can't really change what happened in the past, in terms of like your mind is already reacted in the past. So those patterns are already ingrained. Those themes that you have are already there in the mind. So the only thing you can do now is to say, okay, it doesn't matter. I don't care about this anymore. And the mind is going to let go of those themes. Now, the more steps forward you take, the more times you repeat that this theme is not important, that theme is not important, the faster you will recover. But if you're saying one time, yes, it is, no, it's not, like, yes, it is important, no, it's not important, then you're just going back and forth, and it's going to be a much, much longer process. So now that also, like, that happens to everybody, right? That people go back and forth for some time. But it's, you have to let go of that, because why would you make yourself suffer more when you don't need to? Do you know what I mean? You're still going to let go of the thought, because you're going to get some new detail that you're going to focus on, or some new situation you're going to focus on. So whatever thought you're having right now, you're still going to let go of it. So, that fear of what if I let go and then it turns out to be true, or something like that. That's most people's fear, right? Or it turns out to be important. You're still going to let go, because you're moving on to another thought, and this thought becomes irrelevant. But you're just going to do it, say, in, a certain period of time later, right? When it's already got ingrained, you already scared your mind to think that you're in danger, rather than just doing it right away. So timing is very critical. And if you do this, there's no way you will not recover. I talk to a lot of people. The only people that don't recover, and it's not that they don't recover, they just don't recover while talking to me, is the people that are just not ready to take the steps and refuse the reassurance. Self-reassurance, or reassurance from others, or from the internet, from whatever, or avoidance, right? So, but everybody who does the right things recovers. at their own pace. And their pace depends on how much they're doing the right thing versus how much they're doing the wrong thing, right? So even though it feels like, well, I'm never going to recover or I'm having all these setbacks, you have to think of an overall percentage. How many times are you having setbacks versus how many times are you succeeding? And if that number is not that high that you're succeeding, you need to work on it and get it higher. There's no really other way to do it. It's just really you have to put in the work, you know? And if you do, you will recover. There's no doubt about that. But it's if you're just gonna kind of dwell on the fact that, oh, I'm so bad, I'm never gonna recover, all of that, then you're gonna start going into like depression and things like that as well. So it's like you have to kind of pick yourself up and say, I don't care, I'm not dealing with this anymore. This is silly, I'm moving on. Any thought that has to do with my theme is no longer relevant to me. So you're not taking the thoughts as an individual, okay, well, let me examine this thought, let me examine that thought, because then you're just going to go from thought to thought. Group them in a theme. Okay, my general theme is harm OCD, or my general theme is, say, religious OCD. Anything to do with that's getting me anxious and obsessed is an OCD thought. I am disregarding, I'm not buying into the anxiety. Yes, the anxiety is coming to me. And, like I answered in the first question, the guilt can be coming to me. Whatever feelings, right? It could be even physical sensations that are coming to you, or images, like in case of false memory. All of that is irrelevant. That's feelings that are attached to the situation that is not true, that has to do with your theme. Therefore, you're disregarding and you're moving on. And just, I mean, I know how it sounds like it's easy for me to say, but it's really difficult to do. And I've been there, and you have to do the best you can with it. You might not be perfect. It won't be perfect, really, right? But you're doing the best you can every single day, and you're progressing forward in the race. And in that way, there's no way you won't recover. So, but in your specific case about what you were asking about recovery becoming an obsession, or thought about not recovering becoming an obsession, that's very common, and you have to treat it like an obsession, definitely. So just disregarding that thought, no, I'm moving through the process and progressing. Everything else is OCD. I'm not dealing with these thoughts of what if I never recover, what if, the usual OCD stuff. And then if you do that, you will be fine. So the next question I have is, how can I prevent the relapse? So, okay, this is also a very important question. I don't know if I talked about it in previous shows, but we're going to talk about it here as well, because this is something that everybody who has OCD needs to know. Is when you are born, the reason why you are getting OCD now is because when you were born, you are a little bit more sensitive than most people. Everybody who I've talked to who has OCD is more sensitive than general population, in a good way. They're much, I don't want to say like they're nicer people, but they're more sensitive to other people. They're more caring. They're more, do you know what I'm saying? So if you have OCD, you know what I'm talking about. So just like a person who, say, is born with an attitude that I don't care, that you've met people like that there's just people that just nothing phases them. I don't care. This happened, I don't care. That happened, I don't care. I'm not worried about it. Where the person who is sensitive be like, oh my God, my world is crashing down around me. It's just different, almost different type of personality. Now, a person with OCD, or a person with that kind of sensitivity, their negative side is that they can get obsessed very easily, right? That they can get stressed out, obsessed very easily. Their positivity, the positive side of all of this, is that they can get obsessed about things and be very successful in the things they accomplish because they're so focused on things. So it's not all negative that you are like that, while the person who doesn't care, they have a hard time caring about anything much. Do you know what I mean? And they have those issues that they have to face, right? So don't think of OCD as purely negative. It's not. Like not OCD, but of being sensitive as purely negative, and that you're kind of put in the situation. But at the same time, you have to understand that you were born a little bit more sensitive, and this is something that It's kind of like a part of you. So yes, once you get over OCD, you will still be sensitive. And this is why I always say that once you recover, this work that you're doing with choosing what thoughts you want to have and choosing what thoughts to pay attention to, it doesn't stop. You have to keep going, and you have to do this in your regular life as well. So you might not be like, because you don't have OCD anymore, you don't have thoughts that are kind of way out there, right? In terms of like the reality of the situation. But you might still have worries about, I don't know, your family or finances, or just, whatever situations you're dealing with in your life. And you can get obsessed about those things. It wouldn't be called OCD, it would just be called anxiety, because it's not to that extent. But you can still do the work of practicing of, okay, I thought about this enough. Thinking about it more is not going to make a difference. Obsessing about it is not going to make a difference. So I'm just going to let go and see what happens. I've done all I could. Practicing that in real life as well. And this is very important for the relapse situation, because your mind views stress the same way. It doesn't matter if it's a stress from, say, getting into an accident, or having something else like happen in your life in terms of emotions. So physical stress, emotional stress, or OCD stress. It views it all the same way. You are in danger. That's how your mind views it. If you're in danger, it's going to give you anxiety. So you have to make sure that your overall level of stress is acceptable for your specific mind. Do you know what I mean? Which is more sensitive than most people. Basically, what I'm saying is you can handle less stress than, say, a person who just doesn't care, So you have to make those adjustments. So sleeping a little bit more, meditating, avoiding caffeine as much as possible. I always say when you have OCD and you're in the process of recovery, you cannot have coffee or caffeinated beverages. They're not good for you, and they make you more anxious. Once you recover, you can have coffee again. But again, watch it. Like, don't have 5 cups a day, because it's going to put you on edge. Don't take too much at the same time. Especially this is true for people with this kind of personality. It's true for me as well, that you take on too many projects, can't handle it, get stressed out. And that can set you up for having a relapse. So you have to make sure that you're not allowing yourself to get too overwhelmed, kind of, being sensitive to your sensitivity. But at the same time working on your sensitivity. And whenever you have the opportunity to either react a lot, get obsessed, even if you're over OCD but with real life, still choosing not to. No, I've done enough. I'm choosing not to pay attention too much to it anymore, and I'm detaching as much as I possibly can. Not fully detaching from the situation, but basically what you're doing is you're mimicking what a person who says I don't care about anything would do. So they would react a little bit, but they wouldn't react as much. And doing those things will prevent a relapse. Also, if you do get a thought that has to do with your theme, and say you haven't had OCD for, I don't know, 5 years, you haven't had OCD, and all of a sudden you got a thought that scared you, you have to make like that has to do with your theme from years ago. You have to make sure you disregard right away. So you don't, because the mind will kind of throw every once in a while that same type of thought, because it's just trying to check, is it still irrelevant to you? Are you still not in danger? Just checking, and seeing your reaction. So you have to make sure that you show your mind that, no, it's fine, I'm still not in danger, don't need to send this to me again. So it doesn't grow again, it doesn't take root and grow. So doing those things, you're going to be fine. But out of all of the stuff that I said, number one is definitely stress levels. Don't put yourself into situations that are just generally too much for you. So the next question I have is, hi, can you do a video on facing uncertainty or facing question in my mind that I'm not able to figure out? How can we move on from a question that could be bad if we don't have an answer for it? And this is typical for OCD, right? That you have a question, you're not sure about something, and you're going over and over it in your mind, trying to figure it out. The more you do this, the worse you will feel, the more real it starts to feel, you know? So you need to detach from it. You need to let go. And then as you let go and you let go emotionally, you start to logically see that it's not a big deal. But you have to let go emotionally first. And to do that, you have to say, I choose not to pay attention to this thought. I'm not going over it anymore. I'm not researching it anymore. I'm just pretending it doesn't exist, basically, you know? Anything to do with this type of thought, with this type of theme, I don't need to figure it out. I'm choosing not to figure it out. If it ever comes true, or if ever I find out that it's true, then I will deal with it. But I gotta tell you, like, that doesn't happen. That doesn't. I've had so many clients. Not once has anything came true for anybody. So you're not really in danger, but you're just kind of saying it just to ease your mind. So like, yeah. If it happens, I'll figure it out. You know. But really, what you're doing is you're saying, I'm choosing not to pay attention and moving on. And then you actually do have to move on in terms of physically doing something else. So going outside, spending time with the people around you, like doing things rather than just sitting there and worrying and worrying and worrying, And then if you do what I'm telling you, that uncertainty is going to start to go away. But the more you try to research, the more you try to figure it out, the more uncertainty your mind will send you, because your mind thinks you're in danger, because that's what you're basically training it to think, because you're sending these feelings of fear. And your mind's going to send you more uncertainty and more anxiety, and you'll feel like even more so like this is dangerous, and it's just going to go higher and higher. So you have to say, I'm done. I'm choosing not to pay attention. I'm choosing to move on, and then you'll be fine. So the next question I have is, hi Ali, why all of a sudden did my mind bring up the past? And with that, again, you were probably already having OCD thoughts, right? And it's just going from thought to thought. One thought went away, got replaced with another thought, right? So it could have been because you were having a lot of stress, or maybe you were doing reassurance and it just brought you another thought. Maybe you solved that previous one, it brought you another one. It could be for different reasons, but you have to disregard. Now that you have this thought, don't solve it. Well, why did I have it? Why did it come up? Doesn't matter. It's an OCD thought. You're moving on. You're not paying attention. Just like I said in the previous question, it never comes true for anybody who has OCD. Never ever. It doesn't happen. This is just a what if OCD thought, So just disregarding, moving on, and you will feel better. But some time has to go by. So kind of like sitting with the anxiety, seeing that you're getting anxiety, because the second that you refuse to pay attention is not the same second that the thought will go away, so the thought will still be there giving you anxiety, but, just doing the best you can for that day, trying to refocus, trying to do other things, and then you will start to move on and start to feel easier as the days progress. So next question I have, how do the OCD thoughts become habits because you're thinking about them all the time? And like basically why you're thinking about them and this kind of thing. So it is just a longer email. So, okay, because your mind is focused on a particular theme, what's happening is that theme gets brought up automatically. So if you're just sitting there doing nothing, it can come up with some thought or some image. If you're watching a show and it kind of brings something up, you'll again react. So it's just that because you were paying so much attention to these kinds of things, especially like, for example, like harm OCD, that's very common with that, or like, I don't know, religious OCD or something like that, or cleaning OCD. They're all the same thing, really, if you think about it, right? That because your mind had kind of zeroed in on it and it's really paying attention to this particular topic, you feel like you're having these thoughts all the time. But then you almost start to think that, am I having these thoughts because I want to have them, or am I having these thoughts because of OCD, and am I a bad person because I'm having these thoughts and all of that? All of this is typical OCD thinking, so don't fall into it. Basically saying to yourself, this is OCD, the reason why I'm getting them is OCD, the reason why they're in my mind is because of OCD, and in order to move on from it, I have to refuse paying attention to these thoughts. So again, what I said in the last question, right? Like choosing not to pay attention, choosing to move on, choosing to disregard, and then as time goes on, your mind will send you less and less of these thoughts. So the next question that I have is, hi Ali, how long does it typically take someone to really recover from OCD if they are for the most part not giving in to the OCD thoughts? Very good question, and the basically I would say a few months. If they're doing 80% not giving in and 20% they do end up giving in, just because this is life, things like this happen, especially if you're dealing with real life as well, which most people are, right? Like stress and all of that. There's going to be a little bit of failure happening all the time. But if you're doing like 80-20 or even like 70-30, I would say 70-30 probably closer to 6 months, 80-20 probably closer to maybe 4 months, something like that. Assuming it's like a standard type of OCD situation. If, say, for example, you have a lot of different obsessions that you have to, or rather not obsessions, but compulsions that you have to face one at a time. A lot of this happens with physical OCD. It might take a little bit longer, but it depends how fast you go through them as well, because you can still recover in a few months if you're really facing them. But everybody goes at their own pace, like you're not racing against anybody else, you're racing against yourself. The important thing is you are recovering. And I would discourage people to do it in a way of, okay, I have to recover before New Year or before Christmas or before my birthday or something like that, because it's nice to have that goal, but at the same time, it's what are you doing today to recover? Because you can lower your anxiety from 10 out of 10 to 9 out of 10 in the course of a day, if you're going to be doing the right thing and being very strong about it. It doesn't mean that it's going to always stay at 9 out of 10, because you have to you can lower it, but you have to ingrain that new lower level of anxiety in your mind, because it's used to 10 out of 10, right? So it's going to take a few days. But you can start right now. You don't need to wait until some, like having a goal like that, because it's like losing weight, it's, I want to lose weight by a certain date, but what are you doing right now? Are you are you eating cookies? Well, you're not going to get there this way, right? So it's taking it moment at a time and every moment refusing. And then, but I would say, yeah, anywhere from 4 to 6 months to fully recover. And then also after that, you have to do kind of maintenance and make sure that you're not overstressed. Like I was saying in the other question, right? That making sure you don't have a relapse and things like that. So I'm not including that time in it. I'm just including the time from when you're going from 10 out of 10 anxiety to, 0 out of 10. But 0 out of 10 is not accurate, because if you stop having OCD anxiety, you're still going to be living in the real world where you're going to be stressed, right? So I don't know if anybody really has 0 out of 10 anxiety, but going to like 1 out of 10 or something like that about real things, not about OCD type thoughts. Okay, so that was the last question for today's show. If you would like more information, you can visit youhaveocd.com. There's a private recovery program that's one-on-one with me. There's ebooks available. There's articles on OCD recovery. And if you have any questions or if anything is unclear, please email me to info@youhaveocd.com. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please subscribe. Please like this video if you like this video, and I'll see you next time.